high road or the low road, you can't visit Scotland without seeing heather. Vanessa Collingridge looks at one of the country's favourite flowers and how to grow it. I'm back.
At this time of year, Scotland's mountains and moors are beginning to burst into a purple glow of heather, which, as well as being vital for the grouse and the deer, is an integral part of the Scottish folklore. So where better to look at heathers than the Bell's Cherrybank Gardens in Perth, which plays host to a national heather collection, turning the land into a carpet of colour. The man in charge is Norrie Robertson.
So Norrie, then what is the attraction of heathers?
Well, the attraction of heathers is that you can have them flowering 12 months of the year. And you get foliage colour, you have different varieties, everything that you can see here, ideal plants.
So if you were starting out with a heather garden, how would you make sure that you maintain that colour throughout the year?
Well, basically you would be looking at different varieties. You'd be looking at carneas, you'd be looking at eriginas, you'd be looking at darliensis, vegans, which all flower at different times of year, different shades as you see, and that's how you can achieve this effect. This is a one-year-old plant. This is the size of plant you would actually buy in a garden centre, and that's some planted just in March this year.
How far apart would you be planting these?
Well, basically, as you can see, we're planting them about roughly a foot apart. The rough idea is at 9 plants per square metre. This is a 2-year-old bed here, and you can see the difference in the plants, how big they've grown. Some of them grow at different heights, different densities. And 3-year-olds, by the time they're 3-year-old, they'll be knit in together and almost as a one solid plant. This is a fully established bed, 4-year-old, and just a complete tapestry of colour looking right down the bed there.
Now, the majority of cultivars come from 2 main species, the Kalunas and the Ericas. How do you tell the difference between the 2?
Well, basically it's quite easy to tell the difference between them. Basically, an Erica, the leaves are in circles right around the stem of the plant, and in the Kaluna, they're alternate in small nodules up the stem.
So what's looking at its best at this time of year?
Well, this time of year, some of the Kalunas, it's like this is a white one here. This one's white mite. Excellent lot of flower on it just now. You see that there? Almost covered in pure white flowers. And this is a fine dark Bell Cinerea, and this one's Cinerea Ruby. Good flower on it. It's been flowering for 3 weeks already, and it'll last another 3-4 weeks easy. Behind it is a lighter purple one, Schizopetala, named because it has split petals on the flowers.
And as well as the colour in the flowers, you've also got this wonderful colour in the foliage as well.
Yes, this is a tree heather, Erica arborea, Albert's gold. Beautiful colour of gold, white flower in the spring, but basically growing for its height. It will eventually grow up to 1.5 metres high, which is ideal for giving you extra height throughout your heather garden.
Now, if you were setting up your own heather bed, what precisely would you be looking for?
You'd be looking for a very well-drained soil with a pH between 4.5 and 6.3. Basically, if you've got a heavy soil, you should be adding grit or very sharp sand to open up. Heathers love to have free rooting. They do not like to be sitting in their feet wet. You need to use very little peat. We use peat just in the top here, just to suppress weeds.
But could you use one of the peat substitutes?
Well, no, I haven't used any, and I don't think you can. There's something in peat that is totally different, and it is the ideal thing for heathers, and it sets them off completely. Once your bed's established, it requires very little maintenance. The important thing is to get rid of perennial weeds before you do any planting, because once the plants are mature like this, they will not suppress weeds. So it's important to have your bed clean before you start. Then the only maintenance you need is every year, once they've finished flowering, is just to clip the flowering wood off them like that. Once you've finished pruning them, you must gather all the clippings up because it's a source of disease. This is a vegans here, and this is something you wouldn't take as a cutting. One, it's actually got the flowers on it there. You can see the flowers. What you should actually be looking for is one like this here, which has no flowers on it, and taking that cutting off. You should just...
Now you're using a peat and sand mixture here, but could you buy a ready prepared compost?
Yes, you could buy an ericaceous compost, rooting compost in most garden centres, which is suitable for growing heathers, rhododendrons and that in.
And are these modules the best thing to be planting them in?
The modules are the best thing because heather roots are very, very fine when they're in a young plant, where if you grow them in those modules, you're taking them out when they're almost pot-bound and there's no damage to the roots. In the garden here we have got 831 different varieties of heathers, and you can get about 200 of them are commercially grown. Heathers give you a wonderful ground cover, low maintenance garden with colour all the year round and foliage and flowers, and really relatively free from pests and diseases.
So that's the date for your diaries next week at the later time of 9:35 on BBC Two.